Good day, this is Shauna Casey, and welcome to this SOS educational webcast, Brand Awareness, Building Your Professional Brand. Due to the large number of attendees, no conference call service is available for this webcast. The sound will broadcast through your computer speakers. However, if you wish to ask a question at any time during the presentation, please feel free to type it into the questions and answers panel of your GoTo Webcast console, and we will do our best to answer them as they come in. Any questions that we don't get a chance to address during the webcast, we will follow up afterwards in an email. This morning we sent an email with a link to the presentation materials to everyone that registered as of 10 a.m. Pacific this morning. You can also find the link to the materials under the Event Resources tab on your GoTo Webcast console. This session will also be recorded, and we will send a link to the recording and materials in the next day or two. I hope that all of you are familiar with Stock and Option Solutions, or SOS as we are more commonly known. For those of you who are not, SOS is a leading stock administration, staffing, consulting, and outsourcing firm within the equity compensation marketplace. SOS provides interim and permanent placement, expert project resources, and total outsourcing solutions. To learn more, you can visit us online at www.sos-team.com or call us at 888-SOS-0199. Next, I'd like to introduce you to our speakers for today's session. We are pleased to have Barbara Boxa and Andrea Best on the panel today. Barbara is the Executive Director of the National Association of Stock Plan Professionals, which is the premier membership association for anyone who works in the field of equity compensation. She is a frequent speaker on equity compensation related topics and is the author of the book, Accounting for Equity Compensation. Barbara also serves as an editor of the Corporate Executive and is a member of the CEP Advisory Board. Andrea is the Managing Director of People Solutions at Stock and Option Solutions, where she leads the consulting team that handles the stock administration and special project needs of hundreds of clients across the country. Andrea started and continues to drive company-wide recruiting, and she also frequently speaks at industry events and authors the Career Corner blog in the NASPP Career Center. Next is our standard disclaimer slide. We'd like to remind you to consult your own advisors before making any changes. As I mentioned, the materials are available on our website, and here again is the link. Thank you all for joining us today, and with that, I'll turn this presentation over to Andrea, who will cover the agenda and introduce the topic. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Shauna. I am really excited to be here and happy to be discussing this very important topic of branding. Our agenda today will cover defining your personal brand, some first steps you can take to dip your toes into this process, the next steps, which involve finding opportunities to get your brand known by others, a few cautions about how your brand may go wrong, and some suggestions to turn it around, and then some additional tips and a few last words. So why a personal brand? I'd like to start off our discussion today by exploring this thing we call a personal brand and why it is important. I read recently a terrific article on personal branding in Forbes and would like to borrow the author Glenn Yopes' definition to commence our presentation because I found the distinction he raises as an apt starting point. Glenn writes, personal branding, much like social media, is about making a full-time commitment to the journey of defining yourself as a leader and how this will shape the manner in which you will serve others. Your personal brand, he says, should represent the value you are able to consistently deliver to those you are serving. In his article, Personal Branding is a Leadership Requirement, Not a Self-Promotion Campaign, Glenn works to raise the conversation about personal branding above one focused solely on self-promotion. I feel this is an ideal entry point into our conversation because perhaps it can serve to disarm those who may see the idea of personal branding as off-putting or something that ought to remain in the purview of marketing teams. Indeed, a focus on your personal brand is an opportunity to look more deeply at yourself, recognize your unique skills and perspectives, and invite into your life the people and opportunities that will allow you to serve others and continue to grow as a professional and as a human being. So this quote I have up here of Tom Peters, while he argues that we are all the CEOs of Me Inc., you can see that personal branding also means and can lead to much more than merely a personal sales pitch. So we're going to be covering that and many more things in our discussion today. So what is your personal brand? I think Mark Eckel has hit the nail on the head here. You are a brand whether you know it or not, and we're going to be talking about that in a little while to say, you know, how do you handle the brand that perhaps you haven't consciously created for yourself. But what is it? It is your reputation, what you're known for, who you are, and most importantly, how you make others feel. You have a great opportunity to leave others feeling good in relationship to you and feeling served by the role you play. So we're going to be discussing those opportunities today. Shauna, I see some people are having some concerns about sound. Is that across the board?
No, it's fine. You can continue. Thank you.
Okay, great. Sorry. I just wanted to check in and see if it was on my end. Okay, great. So why personal brand matters? Obviously, there's a deeper consequence to investigating what drives you as a professional, who you are, how people feel around you. And the many benefits are listed here. You get to raise your visibility as far as people understanding and seeing the expertise that you have, recognizing you, coming to you to solve problems and with business. It's an opportunity to develop your leadership philosophy. And even if you say, well, I'm not a leader, you know, I'm a stock administrator, or I'm someone who does sales. I don't see myself as, I'm not a manager. I would like to urge you to see every person as a leader. You know, each of us have an opportunity to create something amazing with our lives, with our careers, and we represent something that people may want to follow or people may, you know, turn away from. And so how we show up in the world, it really allows for us to lead our lives in the direction we want to head and perhaps have others come along with us. So you get to increase your networking opportunities, perhaps find a better job if that's what you're looking for, increase earning potential. If you're in sales, if you're in business, this can lead to increasing opportunities there, as well as building yourself on an online community, getting better, happier clients who are willing to pay the price for your services by totally understanding your value. And I want to stress this because I know that in our industry this isn't such a hot topic now, but when the markets are down, we find that there's definitely a return to a reinvestment in your career. So I just urge you, be looking at this year-round because you'll be ready with that reputation already having been built should we go through another economic downturn.
And Andrea, for me,
so
I think having a personal brand for me is all about opportunities, making sure that opportunities come your way. And it could be an opportunity for a new job. It could be an opportunity to take on a new project that you're really interested in and that could elevate your status at your current company. It could be an opportunity to speak at a conference and get to attend a conference without having to pay the registration fee or get a discounted registration fee. There are lots and lots of opportunities, both big and small, in the process of doing our jobs. And having a personal brand means that when those opportunities arise, you are top of mind for the people that are perhaps selecting who might participate in those opportunities. And so it's all about just having an opportunity. And some of those opportunities provide more opportunities for you to strengthen your brand. So it's just sort of about making sure that opportunities are coming your way.
Absolutely. I love that way of putting it. So if we want opportunities to come our way, it's really important that we don't let others define our brand for us. This is really an opportunity for us to get very clear about who we are about what we represent, about what our purpose is in life, and how we want to interact with others and how we want to be seen. So accidental branding could perhaps have negative consequences. Perhaps there are individuals who have met you in certain circumstances and misconstrued something you said, misunderstood. And they could be seeing you in a light that is then spread to others. So conscious branding gives you an opportunity to put on the brakes, to really take some time to reflect about who you are and what you're putting out there, so that people see who you really are, as well as who you want to be and who you're aspiring to be. And I want to let you guys know that part of the materials that we have for this webcast is a worksheet that will allow you to do some of this first phase branding for yourself. I mean, it is just a first step, but it could really help if you find that you don't know where to begin. Perhaps you're enticed by this idea of branding, but staring at the blank page is overwhelming. So we have that for you as well. And that ties really well in with the idea of your narrative, your story. You get to write this. You get to look at what core values drive you. What is your vision for the world and how you're going to interact with it? And you get to write your story through this process as opposed to allowing someone to write it for you. And certainly that can be a very different story. So it's a very empowering process if you take the time to invest in it. So the process of defining your personal brand, and again, these slides we're going through now are reflected in the worksheet that you can do in your own time. Asks you questions about yourself. Who are you? What is your purpose? What are your strengths and your passions? What is your, and I see a typo, forgive me, what is your unique value proposition? Taking some time to consider these very important questions can help you to start crafting who you are as a professional and what type of a brand you want to be putting out into the industry. In addition to defining your brand and asking yourself those questions, you also want to define your audience. In professional spheres, it could be within your organization, and then you can begin to move out from your organization into the industry, potential employers, potential clients, the community. And I would also argue that this is something that you could employ with your personal relationships as well. Perhaps the idea of branding sounds a bit clinical or businessy, but if you think about who are you to your loved ones and what do you want them to look to you towards and how do you want them to feel in your presence, there can be some really amazing benefits for looking at yourself from all angles, professional and personal, and looking at your relationships as you define your audience. And that might shift your brand a bit depending upon what audience you're looking at.
Okay. Well,
so
now
I think, Barb, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Right. Thanks, Andrea.
Yeah.
All right. So now what we're going to do is get into some of the sort of specifics about building your brand. And we have two sections here. The first section we're going to go through are just some first steps that you can take if you're really just sort of beginning at this process. And then we're going to look at some more advanced steps if you feel like you already are sort of well on the way to having a brand and you're just looking for ways to further that. All right, so my first slide up here is Branding 101, and I felt a little bit silly including this, except that I do know a lot of people, I do encounter a lot of people in this space that don't do these two things. So I did feel like that it's worth talking about. First, one of the really simplest things that you can do to create a brand is to have a LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn is really widely used, particularly in this industry, in a lot of different industries, but certainly in the stock compensation field. It's very, very widely used. And it's just a great way to make sure that people can find you and find some basic information about you. So if you don't already have one, set up a LinkedIn profile. Include at least who your current employer is, maybe a little bit of your career history. You don't necessarily have to have your entire career history. It's always nice to include a picture. I know sometimes people are reluctant to post pictures of themselves, but it is, when I use LinkedIn, it's really nice to be able to go on there and see not just who someone is, but see a picture of them so that it helps me to recognize them the next time I see them, or maybe refreshes my memory as to who they are. You can also use LinkedIn to join other industry groups. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about networking, and now LinkedIn is a way that you can start building that network. And then use LinkedIn to build connections with people that you know. It helps those people stay in touch with you when you move around in your career. It helps you stay in touch with them as well. I always recommend when you're at an industry event and you're meeting people, when you collect their business cards or you write down their name or whatever, when you get back to your office, that is a great time to send out invitations to those people to connect with you. They will have just met you. You're fresh in their mind. And it's a great way to sort of keep track of who you've met at all these industry events and be able to stay in touch with them on an ongoing basis. And then make sure that you are keeping your profile updated. When you change careers, make sure that you go into your LinkedIn profile and update it so that people can find you. I use LinkedIn quite regularly to try to find people that I want to be in touch with, particularly if they're not an NASPP member and I don't have them in my database. LinkedIn is my go-to place to try to find people. Or if I'm even trying to research who someone is, if they've submitted something to the NASPP or they're interested in speaking or something like that, LinkedIn is definitely a place where I go, one of my first places that I go to research someone's background. And I think a lot of people use it that way. And I know some of you feel like, well, I just don't do social media. I'm too old. It's just, that's for the young kids. And I am totally in touch with that emotion. Like, I definitely feel that way about a lot of social media. Like Twitter, I don't understand Twitter. I've given up. I'm never going to understand Twitter. Snapchat, I have no idea what that is. But LinkedIn is something that I think you can understand. And I don't care if you do Facebook. I don't care if you do the whole rest of social media. But for your career and for yourself, I really think you need to give LinkedIn a shot. The other thing I really like to see people have. Go ahead, Andrea. Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow, but I was just going to say I couldn't agree more, and I wanted to add a couple of things that, LinkedIn is really becoming a source for recruiters. So if you are looking to change careers, this is a real opportunity to showcase yourself. And so asking for endorsements, you might have seen, if you're familiar with LinkedIn, that people can endorse you for certain skills. So adding those skills allows them to then go ahead and endorse you, or recommendations is a really a next step level use of LinkedIn that can help to steer you towards opportunities or bring opportunities to you.
Yeah, recommendations are a great thing to do if you work on a project with someone and you feel like the project went really well and you feel like they valued your contributions. It's not a bad idea when you finish the project to just ask them to write a short endorsement for you on LinkedIn. That way you have it. If you wait till when you're actually looking for a job to try to get letters of recommendations and endorsements and things like that, it can be a lot of work to pull all that together. And by then, time has passed. People maybe don't remember exactly what your contributions were. But if you do it right in the moment, it's a lot easier. And it will start to feel natural because you're doing it sort of on an ongoing basis, so you won't be worried that everyone, just by doing it, that everyone thinks you're looking for a job. And it can be, I think, really just, it's a good thing to do sort of as you're going, is to build those recommendations. The other thing that I really recommend is having a standard email signature. And I encounter this a lot where I email people or people email me, and there's just nothing in the email to indicate who they are. And nowadays, in the day of spam and phishing and things like that, I think people are sometimes a little reluctant to reply. I've definitely gotten emails that were legitimate questions that I almost deleted because I really thought they were spam, because there's just nothing in the email to indicate who the sender was. So make sure that when you're emailing people, people know who you are and can respond to you and have some basic information about you. So your email signature should have your name. It should have your company. I think a lot of times I see in signatures that people just sort of, when they created their signature, they maybe just assumed that they were only emailing people at their own company, and everybody would know what company they were at. But remember, you email people outside the company as well, so include your company name in your signature. Include your title, include your phone number, and I always include my email address. And I know people think, well, why do you need to include your email address? You're emailing people. They obviously have your email address. But I've definitely had situations where emails have gotten forwarded to me through some sort of chain, and I'm trying to talk to someone sort of lower down on the chain, and that email address doesn't get translated to me. So I can see that they were included in the email and they were part of the conversation, and I want to reach out to them, but I don't necessarily have their email address because just in the whole forwarding chain, somehow their email address got lost, and I don't have it anymore. So I always include my email address in my signature as well. Make it easy for people to find you. That's the first thing about branding. You want it to be easy for people to find you.
That's a great idea. And during our run-through, I told Barb that I love the idea of adding the email address to the signature line, but I have not done it yet. So I'm going to take that tip back with me. Now we're transitioning over to writing your elevator pitch. And this can be challenging, perhaps daunting when you're looking at the blank page, trying to figure out how do I want to communicate everything about me quickly enough that someone could get it on an elevator ride. But here are some of the things to think about when you're trying to put something like that together. What service or products do you provide? And what does it do? Who is it for? What is your client base? What kind of problems does it solve? What is your unique value proposition and your professional philosophy? And I wouldn't say you need to include all of these. These are just some brainstorming cues to get you started working on your elevator pitch. It's going to feel right once you have the right elements together, but definitely want to share the importance of this. If you're at an industry event, you're at a conference, perhaps a chapter meeting or something like that, and you're meeting new people, you're going to constantly have to come up with something when you introduce yourself. And you could just use your company name or just give your name, but really developing that into something more can allow someone to get a glimpse into you quickly and see if you're the kind of person that perhaps they want to network with or get to know better, and vice versa. So I definitely recommend doing that, and it may be something that changes depending upon your audience as well. I know during our run-through, Barb had sorry, go ahead, Barb.
As I say, yeah, Andrea asked me during the run-through if I had an elevator pitch. And I definitely have one. I sort of developed organically over time. I have to admit, it's not like I sat down and thought, okay, what should my elevator pitch be? But I have one, and it's sort of, oftentimes I encounter people who people will laugh at me and say, well, everyone knows who you are. But as soon as I think that everyone knows who I am, I meet someone who doesn't know who I am, oftentimes at my own conference. So I have a little pitch to introduce myself that just says how, that who I am and that I'm the executive director for the NASPP and what the NASPP is and what being the executive director entails, and a little bit about my history, that I've been in the industry for 20 years and that I'm a subject matter expert and I know a lot about tax and accounting. So those are sort of the basic components of my elevator pitch. And then my pitch definitely changes if I'm talking to someone who's outside the industry. Anybody in the industry knows what stock compensation is, and most people have an idea of what the NASPP is. But if I'm meeting someone sort of in some other sort of social situation where it's not connected to our industry, then I have to take a step back and explain sort of what the NASPP is and what stock compensation is, and I have a whole little spiel that I give that explains sort of what my organization is.
Excellent. Yeah, and one of the things we also discussed during our run-through is that it wasn't as though Barb intentionally created that elevator speech. It sort of just came about organically. So I think all of us probably have something that we automatically say that perhaps we haven't sat down and really fleshed out in detail, but then here's an opportunity, and I'm sure, Barb, you've done a lot of this work, in recent times as you are looking at the different communities you might be communicating in, but is to take a look at what you're saying, and you can always tweak it to make sure that it's as aligned with your brand as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes just the reaction that you get from people when you give your elevator pitch makes you realize, oh, I need to start including a little bit different information in this.
That's a really good point. That feedback can be really helpful. So building a brand by association, what does that mean? Well, we are often, it's not necessarily good or bad, but we're often defined by those we associate with, whether it be an organization or individuals. So this is something you could take conscious control over as well. Perhaps consider finding a mentor if you want to grow your skills into a particular area. Joining an industry organization, obviously the NASBP is a really great one. There's GEO, there's NCEO. There are others that are maybe peripheral around our industry, or even business associations or associations for female business people. There's all sorts of opportunities out there to associate yourself with a strong brand that will give you additional kudos and also connect you with other individuals who have similar interests and perhaps could lead to opportunities that you can't necessarily know going into it. Continuing your education is a great way to build your brand by associating with an educational institution. Your company brand is another one. If it's important to you, perhaps you want to align yourself with a company that has a very strong brand, because then your brand is built by association with your employer as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk more about networking in the next couple of slides, but really, you don't have to build your brand entirely on your own. There are things that you can do that give you assistance with it, from joining an organization to, doing public speaking, or there are a host of ways that you can sort of leverage other industry resources that will help you build your brand as well.
Yeah, and Barb, I see that we're getting a question from one of our listeners who feels that perhaps there are some special things we can share for someone who has a lot of experience, 25 to 30 years of experience in the field. I think we're going to go into that a bit, but I don't know if you have anything off the cuff that you would want to share, or perhaps we can try to address that as we go along.
Yeah, so the question is, what if I have 25 to 30 years of experience in a field? Should I just say 20 years so I don't sound too old? And that question is amusing to me because at one point, this was I have just over 20 years experience in the industry. And about 5 years ago when I was at 15, I decided I'm capping it at 15. Not because I was worried that people would think that I'm too old, but because I personally am freaked out about getting old. And so I just decided I'm just going to cap it. I'm just in my bio, I'm just going to say over 15 years. And it's totally true. Like, it is over 15 years. It doesn't matter how long I'm in the industry. It's never going to turn into less than 15. So I just sort of decided I'm going to cap it at that. And then the NCEO publishes a number of articles that I write for them, and they always have a bio in the book. And every year I'd send them the bio that said over 15, and every year they're like, aren't you a year older now? Shouldn't we update it? And I always was like, no, I'm capping it. But I sort of given up on that. I did after 5 years. I decided I should increase it to over 20 years. I think the most important thing here is to do what you're comfortable with. If you are comfortable saying if you don't really want people to know your true age, and you are more comfortable just saying 20 years, I think that that's fine. And at some point, like, how many years experience do you need? 20 years versus 25 versus 30? I don't think that it matters that much. If you are really proud of the fact that you have 30 years experience and you want to highlight that, then that's what I would do. It is true there is. I understand the concerns about ageism, and that sometimes people have a preference for people that are young, but I also think that people appreciate experience, and it does demonstrate a certain amount of knowledge. So I don't know that I would. I think that in the end my answer is to just be true to yourself and do what you're comfortable with. I don't know, Andrea, if you have a suggestion. I
think that's a great. No, I think that's a great response. And in my experience, more experience is better. but I understand that perhaps there is ageism out there, and it's really unfortunate. But you know, our team prides itself on its years of experience, and so if we have someone on our team with that many years of experience, we're going to be, you know, we're definitely going to be letting our clients know that, because they know that they're getting someone who's seen a lot and therefore is most likely going to be able to, you know, adjust or understand how circumstances are within multiple different client environments. And I see that we have a question also coming. Oh, yeah, I see that on repairing your brand. So we are going to be covering
how you identify, also how you identify what your current brand is. Okay, great.
Well, good question. So how do you identify what your current brand is? I would say that you can start with the worksheet that we shared with you. There are also a lot of online resources where you can do some research about this. But one of the things that we recommend is that the individual working on their brand actually asks for feedback. Hey, I think this is my brand. What do you know? Does that seem to reflect me as you know of me? And and then brace yourself for some honest feedback, and go to people you trust, whom you work with, or people you know personally, and vet out your branding, what you believe your branding to be, to see if it is in alignment with your behavior. And I think also sometimes that just takes some soul searching and sitting down with yourself quietly to really be honest with how you are showing up in the world and how you're interacting with others and how they're perceiving you. So it can be, a daunting task, but also very, very valuable in the end, because you can learn some truths that then you can take action on. And we'll be talking about repairing your brand a little bit later. Great question. Now Barbara's going to move on to networking.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about networking. This is, I think, the single most important thing that you can do for your career. In fact, a couple years ago, I participated in a different webcast on sort of how to be successful in equity compensation, and as part of that, we did a little informal survey of a lot of different colleagues. We were just asking them to provide tips that we might include in the webcast, and this was the single most popular tip that people gave to us, is to build your network. Then your network provides, first of all, provides a great resource of people that you can go to when you have questions about what you're doing in your job. I can almost guarantee you there is no question that you have about your stock compensation program that some other company hasn't also had and hasn't already had to resolve. So any question that you have, if you have a network of people that you can put that question out to, it can really provide a great resource for you to resolve those questions. And also, I think really important is that people work better with people they know and that they like. People want to work with people that they know and like. So the more people that know you and the more people that like you, the more opportunities that are going to come your way. It works, in general, when we're doing projects here at the NASPP, we have a pretty small staff. There's only 5 of us on staff here. So we all know each other and we have to like each other because we're all working very closely. But we're oftentimes working with people outside the organization on sort of very large projects. And in my experience, those projects always go better when the people we're working with are people that we also feel like we know socially and that we get along with really well, and that it's not just a business relationship. And I think that's true with anything that you're doing at work, even though I think people sometimes feel like, well, I really need to separate my social life from my business life, and I just need to be very businesslike with people I work with. But the fact is, if you allow some mix there and you are a little bit social with the people that you work with, projects go better. People like you better, more opportunities come your way, and when you're working together, you have a better working relationship. So building your network really helps potentially more opportunities come your way. And remember, and I have a slide on this a little bit later as well, that your network is not just externally focused. A lot of times, particularly in this space where stock plan administration is a role that is very unique within a company, you're probably the only stock plan administrator. Maybe you're part of a larger team, but you're still the only person at your company that does exactly what you do. And And so a lot of times when we think about our network, we think about people outside the company that we need to network with. But don't forget that one thing about stock plan administration is that you have to work with a lot of different people within your company. And so you have a network that is both externally focused and also internally focused. So here are a few tips for networking that is externally focused, and then I also have a slide with some tips on internally focused networking. So networking outside your company, a great way to do that is to just get out and attend some professional events. If you're a member of the NASVP, go to your local chapter meetings, attend the NASVP conference, attend other industry conferences. There may be other organizations in the industry that you're a member of, attend their local meetings as well. Just get out and attend events. And I know that one thing that we notice with the chapters and with the conference as well is that people think, well, I only should attend if I'm interested in the content that is being delivered at that meeting. But I'm not really sure that that's true. I personally, because of course I work for the NASVP, I attend every chapter meeting in my area whether I care about the content that's being presented or not. And a big part of every meeting is the time before and the time after when I'm talking to people and getting to know people. And so even if the presentation itself isn't something that I'm interested in, the meeting is still valuable to me because of all the people that I get to talk to. So you might think about going to meetings, maybe setting a goal for yourself of I'm going to go to X number of different business events per year, whether or not I'm interested in the content. If I'm interested in the content, that is a bonus, and I'll try to go to those meetings where I am interested in the content. But if not, I'm going to go anyway just so that I make sure that I get out and meeting people. And then when you're at the meeting, make sure that you connect with people there. Another mistake that I see people make is they go with one of their coworkers or maybe a team of colleagues, and because it's always a little daunting to walk into a meeting by yourself. But then they just talk to the people they came with. And you really want to make sure that you get out and talk to other people. If you're going there with a team from your company, split up. Don't all sit together. Everybody sits at a different table. When I walk into an NASVP chapter meeting, oftentimes I'm looking for the table that has the fewest people that I know sitting at it. And that's the table I'll sit at because it's a great opportunity for me to meet more of my members. And introduce yourself to the speaker. If you like the presentation, go up afterwards. Even if you don't have a question to ask, go up afterwards and introduce yourself to the speaker. And tell them you enjoyed the presentation. And then after you get home, send the speaker an invite to connect on LinkedIn so that you've made a colleague out of that particular speaker. And please remember to bring your business cards to meetings so that when you meet people, you can give them sort of a physical reminder of who you are. Most of you, in fact all of you, have providers that you work with, and your providers probably offer various programs. They might be events that you can attend in. They might be users groups that you can, or client groups that you can participate in. And if you have an opportunity to participate in those, take advantage of that. It's a great way to, again, meet other people in this space. It also gives you a network of people that you can work with when you have questions about your provider solutions. And then get involved with professional associations. So certainly going to meetings is a great way to do that, but if you are, in addition to going to the meetings, become a member of the organization or volunteer to help out with your local or your regional chapter. My local chapters are almost always looking for people to volunteer to assist with running the chapter and running chapter events. And that is a really, really great way to start building a local network because you will sort of almost right away become great friends with everybody else who's running the chapter. And then by taking a leadership role in the chapter, people know who you are. I find for me, because I am very shy and socially sort of intimidated when I walk into a big room of people. But if I have like a specific task, if I'm assigned the job of handing out name badges, or I'm assigned the job of taking photos, or whatever, that just sort of completely eliminates that awkwardness for me because now I have a mission. I have a thing that I need to do, and I feel I'm just much more comfortable in that role. And it's a lot easier for me to meet and talk to people if I have a particular reason for having to do that. So for those of you that are shy, that can be really a great way to sort of help yourself get over that. Another thing that you can do is participate in online groups. We have a discussion forum for the NASPP. On LinkedIn, there are various groups that have sort of risen up around the stock compensation industry, so you can participate in those forums. Remember to participate under your name. If you participate anonymously, we appreciate your participation, but you're not really doing anything to further your brand or to expand your network because no one knows who you are. Games and events that are offered are another great thing to participate in that can allow you to connect with other people that are playing the games. And then we'll talk a lot about speaking at events, but that is another great way to further your brand. And I see, Andrea, that we have a couple questions. Maybe we want to stop and take our questions before I go to the next slide.
Yeah, I guess I was kind of debating back and forth about that. So because perhaps it's better served to wait till the end, but we have a great question about someone who has a split career, 10 years in the tax world, tax and payroll, and then three plus years in stock administration. So what does that mean for someone whose brand has changed over the years? Do you want to address that now, Barb? Do you have any?
Yeah, I think we might as well just take it now.
Okay.
And I guess my first question would be, so which brand do you want to have? Do you want to have both? Are you prepared to sort of close the door on one career? So are you done with tax and payroll, or do you sort of want to keep that door open? Because if you want to keep that door open, and I personally, the more doors you keep open, the more opportunities you have. So you might want to try to continue to stay involved in that space. And if you were involved in industry organizations for tax and payroll, you might want to sort of stay involved. Maybe you'll sort of cut back on your experience. Maybe you cut back a little bit on the activities that you're doing in that space so that you can focus on the stock plan administration space as well. But I think that to the extent that you want to keep that door open, then it might make sense to try to sort of work both of those into your brand. And those tax, like in this particular example, there's a lot of synergy between those two spaces. Like the tax and payroll background is, I think, very helpful for stock plan administration. And so that might even be something that you can build into your brand for stock plan administration. You might be sort of someone who is not just an expert on stock plan administration, but you also bring this other expertise that is very, very valuable. For me personally, payroll is a big black box, and I know for the NASPP, oftentimes we're trying to find people who can speak on payroll-related issues, and it's sort of hard for us to find those people because, well, I know a lot of stock plan administrators and not a whole lot of payroll personnel, and having that sort of unique sort of intersection where you could speak to both is, I think, highly valuable. So my advice would be to try to leverage that.
I totally agree. As a matter of fact, I think that if you're not wanting to just completely divorce yourself from your past 10 plus years of experience because you want to only focus on stock plan administration, I think it can be a real strength to have that background. It's something that makes you unique, like Barb said, so that is a great place to start for building your unique value proposition, right? You can understand things in a big picture in a unique way to the typical stock administrator. So that you could definitely have that be a great advantage for you. And
all right.
Then we also had sorry.
I think the rest are just administrative, so I think we can probably go on.
Yes, thank you. And just
great.
Saving time and getting through the slides, I think we'll just hold the questions to the end or hopefully answer them after the webcast. Looks like we have quite a few slides to get through in about 15 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. We have our work cut out for us.
Okay. Yes. All right, so my next slide is just on internally focused networking. Remember that your network is not just external. You also have a lot of people at your company that you work with, and there are opportunities that can come up for you within your organization. And having a good network internally can make sure that you are sort of top of mind when those opportunities arise. My number one advice for internally focused networking is to be a good partner. You're going to work with people internally whether you're a good partner or not, but if you want opportunities to come your way, you want to be a good partner. So meet your commitments, Be reasonable in your expectations of others. Do the things that you say you're going to do. Do them by the time that you say you're going to do them. If you aren't going to be able to fulfill your commitments, make sure that you are really proactive about communicating that and coming up with an alternative solution. Be as good a partner as you can to your colleagues. Also, don't neglect the social aspects of work. We already sort of talked about this a little bit, but get to know your colleagues. Make small talk with them. Don't just be all business. Take people out to lunch or out for coffee occasionally. Schedule celebratory events. If you finish a big project that you've done with another department, schedule some sort of event to celebrate that. If you have a colleague in payroll that you work with a lot, go out to lunch with that person occasionally, or do nice things for that person. If you're not in the same office, maybe find other ways to do nice things for that individual. That really goes a long way in terms of solidifying your relationships. And like I said earlier, people like to work with the people that they like. So be as likable as you can be. And people will go out of the way. If they like you and they feel like you're friends, they will do more for you and go out of their way to assist you than if they just feel like you're a business colleague and you're not really friends. So for me, a big challenge is being friendly in emails because I am very businesslike. I always want to just email people and just get right to the point. And it's definitely been a challenge to have to take a step back and sort of start my emails a little bit more friendly, or hey, how are you doing? I hope things are going well. By the way, I have this one thing I want to ask of you. Whereas for me, I always want to just start off with, hey, I need this right now. Can you do this? And people just respond better when you're friendlier, especially in email, because it's hard sometimes. You don't really realize how your tone comes across. So try to be a little bit friendly, even though it takes a little extra time. It's the hardest part. My emails, that's the longest part of writing any email for me, is trying to figure out the social stuff that I have to include in it. Go to company events. I know people are always like, I don't want to go to the company picnic. It's a big waste of time, and I don't want to socialize with those people. But honestly, really, you should socialize with the people you work with. If there's some sort of company-sponsored event, you should go to that. It's just a great opportunity to sort of take a step back from all the stress and all the challenges that you're all dealing with and just have some fun together, and ultimately that will translate to a better working relationship.
Okay, and that's a great transition to internal brand building, internal networking. So some opportunities for you to build your brand internally at your company are to volunteer, to collaborate with colleagues, especially if you get out of your department and perhaps find things that you can work on with individuals in other departments. That really expands your reach, gets you new contacts, and you never know what kind of opportunities can come from that. Look for process improvement opportunities. Don't make recommendations, obviously respectfully, but it's certainly looked upon favorably if you're looking always to grow, find opportunities to make things better for your company, for your colleagues, and that can be a great way to build your brand. And then looking to understand the goals of your peers and management so that you can help them achieve their goals. Helping others achieve their goals is an amazing way to be able to gain the trust of the people that you work with and have them see you as aligned with them in achieving their goals, and then they're more apt to return the favor to you.
And our last tip here is don't be branded a dinosaur. Stay on top of what is going on in the industry. What I always think about is look for opportunities to demonstrate your value. So when there's a new development in the industry, for example, right now, the FASB just issued this new amendment to ASC 718, and one reaction to that is, oh, now I have to deal with learning a bunch of new accounting stuff, and I really hate accounting, and I'm really annoyed that this happened right now. But another way to look at it is, this is a new thing, and it's going to impact my company, and I am the only one who knows about it right now because I am the only one who's tuned into what's going on in stock plan administration. So how can I take this and bring it back to my company and bring it to the attention of people that need to know about it in a way that is meaningful and that increases my value to the organization? Because the fact is there are some very significant changes in those amendments that for many companies will have a serious impact on their P&L. And so being able to bring that to the attention of your accounting and finance team really helps demonstrate your value. And ultimately, if you're looking for a seat at the table in terms of plan design, being able to demonstrate that value is one of the ways to get there. And then ultimately that potentially translates to other opportunities down the road. So you bring this to the attention of your finance team. They say, oh, you're right, this is a big deal for us, and we need to strategize how we're going to deal with it, and you help them with that strategy. And then, wow, you have like a great topic that you could present at a conference or a local chapter meeting because you helped with this project at your company. And other companies would probably be interested in knowing what your strategy was and how you did that. So look for those opportunities, and staying on top of what is going on in the industry is a good way to find them. All right, so those were the basic steps. Next up, we have some more advanced steps. And my first more advanced step is speaking at industry events. Speaking is an incredibly powerful way to build your brand. You can really quickly make an impression on a lot of people, sometimes a very significant number of people. Now remember, that impression can be positive or it could be negative. It could go either way. So if you're going to speak, you want to make sure that you're good at it and you have something valuable to say and you know what you're talking about. But given all of those things, speaking can be a great way to build your brand. We have a few tips on becoming a speaker if this is something that you want to do. My number one tip is to take a class. Go to a class on presentation skills. There are lots and lots of classes around. I've taken at least 3 or 4 of these classes during my life. You can find them at your local community college. There are groups like Toastmasters. Your company, if you're a large company, they might offer classes on this. There's a lot of resources. There are places like SkillPath that do sort of business type skills often offer classes like this. So there are tons of classes that you can take. Go to one. And you're looking for a class where you actually go there in person, they videotape you, you watch the videotape, and then everybody sort of in the class sort of talks about it. It feels intimidating, but it's not. They're usually very supportive environments. The comments are always very constructive. And it's a really, really great way to improve your presentation skills and to get more comfortable with speaking. And the other thing that I recommend is once you have a speaking gig, rehearse. Back when I was first starting out in speaking publicly, every speech I gave, even like day-long seminars, I would rehearse 3 times before I gave them. The first time through is always a disaster. Usually the second and the third times through are a disaster too, but by the time I actually give the presentation, it's much better. Now that I've been speaking for, I don't know, close to 20 years now, I don't really, I don't do as much rehearsing anymore, but I do still sometimes rehearse. I just gave a speech at the CP Symposium that was a little bit outside my comfort zone, and I just sat around the house. My husband was like, what are you doing? 5 or 6 times I went through it trying to figure out what I was going to say. And even the last time through, I thought this was going to be a disaster. But then by the time I actually got there and did it, it was great. It wasn't at all how I'd rehearsed it, but just that process of going through it, even if you don't feel good about it, by the time you're actually in front of an audience will make it much better. And then once you have sort of the basic skills down, then you're looking for opportunities and topics to speak about. So look for things that you do well or your company does well. A new solution that you've implemented, a new program that you rolled out for your employees, stuff like that. Lots of other people would be interested in that. So look for things that you do well that you can share with others. Another great thing that I recommend doing is reaching out to your service providers and your business partners. So the people that you work with all the time are often also interested in speaking. And particularly if you've collaborated on some sort of project, reach out to them and say, hey, if you're interested in speaking at this upcoming event, so am I. Let's come up with something together that we can talk on. Or maybe you're sending out a proposal where my expertise might be a good fit. So I'd be happy to be included in that. And then start small. Look at don't start with the NASCP conference. That's a big, big event. Your audience is going to be really large. It's very, very intimidating. Start with a local NASCP chapter meeting, or start with a webcast, or another sort of regional event, or a smaller conference. Start small, work your way up to the big stuff. And then another great way to sort of dip your toe in the water is either to be a Keller commentator. If you're an issuer, this is often a great role for you. So you're not really coming up with the presentation. You're not necessarily even building any slides. You're just sort of sitting on the panel and offering commentary about what your company does or how you address certain issues. And it can be sort of a very low-pressure way to participate in a panel. And being a moderator is another great way to do that. Moderator would work for either an issuer or a service provider. And it actually works really well for someone who doesn't feel like they're a subject matter expert. I've been a moderator on panels that I felt like I knew nothing about, but I just got together 3 people who did know what the topic was, and as moderator I just came up with a bunch of questions to ask them. And I didn't really have to do anything. I just sort of queued up each topic. I asked the questions. I tried to be insightful. Maybe I made some jokes along the way. But I really actually wasn't doing the bulk of the presentation. I was organizing it, and people really appreciate someone who organizes things. So the moderator role is often very well appreciated, and it is another great way to sort of just dip your toe in the water without having to be responsible for the entire presentation. Industry authoring is another thing that you could do. I feel like authoring is a little bit harder than speaking because it involves getting published, so you have to find someone who's willing to publish you, which isn't necessarily that hard. On the NASPP website, I am in constant need of contact, so pretty much of content. So pretty much anyone who is interested in publishing something on the website, we're willing to take that. So it's not necessarily that hard, but I feel like sitting down and writing an article is maybe a little bit harder than actually doing a presentation. But it is a great way to expose your brand to many people at once. And it's also really a very tangible and lasting way to do that. You give a presentation and it's over and done. But if you write an article and it's published, you have it forever. It can be on your LinkedIn page. You can bring it with you to job interviews. You can give it to your manager during your performance review. You can pass it out if you're speaking at another industry event somewhere. Like, it's a very tangible thing that you can use to sort of showcase your brand and who you are. If you're interested in doing this, the first step is to have an idea. Come up with something that you think you would like to write about. And then I would suggest that before you actually write it, that you approach the organization that you would want to write it for. So you could approach me. The NCEO also does a lot of publishing in this space. There are actual journals, like World at Work publishes some journals, CFO.com. So you can approach sort of the journal or the organization where you might want to publish it and find out sort of what they would require, what they, how they might use it, and what the process is for submitting it. And I think you want to know that before you put all the work into actually writing the article. And then Andrea, I think this one's your slide.
Great. Yes, it is. And I know we had a question. It disappeared, but we had someone who wanted to know about the introverts' opportunities for branding, and I think we discussed some of those. Barb was discussing, joining an organization and as a volunteer. There are a lot of opportunities to do that don't require you to, that you can be more behind the scenes. And I think also authoring is a great opportunity where you could stay behind the scenes but still be heard. So in transitioning to online presence, sorry, Barb.
I was going to say, we do have a slide coming up actually on that, because not everyone is a public speaker. Yeah. So we will talk about that later. I know we're about at time. I think we're going to just try to go through and finish the whole presentation. So I'm guessing maybe 10 or 15 minutes for us to get through the whole thing. So hopefully you can stick around. If you can't, my understanding is that it is being recorded. So if you can't stick around for the whole thing, but you want to hear the rest of it, you can always come back later and listen to it at your leisure. And Andrea and I are happy to take any questions offline as well. If we didn't address what you wanted to hear in the time that you were able to listen to us, you can just email us separately, and we're happy to talk to you.
Absolutely. So I'll be quick on online presence because I think this is pretty common knowledge. We already talked about LinkedIn, Twitter, blogs, having a personal website. These are opportunities for you if you want to increase your online presence. And then offering valuable free content that serves your target audience is a great way to build an audience and therefore a network online. And offering high-level support to industry influencers. I think the important thing is that not everything. Sometimes if you offer something valuable for free, it can have countless benefits, and certainly outweigh the cost that it cost to you that it took to create that content. And people will continue to come back to you as a source of inspiration or knowledge, expertise, if you're delivering valuable content for them. And also recognizing others for their online contributions. If you hit the like button or make a comment about what you appreciated about something that someone else shared, it's another great way to just get yourself out there and show that you're a part of the conversation and you're supporting others, and they'll be more apt to support you as well. Actually, one more thing on the last slide is that don't think that everyone has to do every one of these things. I personally have things on my list that I haven't done when it comes to my branding, when it comes to my LinkedIn page yet, but that I have goals for myself. And, I think baby steps are fine. So hopefully we're not overwhelming you. These are a host of opportunities. You get to pick and choose what you want to put in your basket, what you feel is going to help, what tools you want in your toolbox, and then you can always add new ones as you go. So how do you do this? You set some goals for yourself. Like I said, I have a few things this year I want to do. So be clear on that and set a time constraint by when you want to have something done. Find a platform for your voice, whether it's your own website, an industry website, or other. And deliver valuable content. Get social, interact with others. That allows you to build relationships. And tracking your progress can help you as well, as you could see the benefit of this as you continue to invest more time and energy in it. So that helps you to know if you need to make adjustments. And that's where the continuous improvement comes in. If something isn't getting you the results you had hoped, you could take a look at it and retool and try something new. So now we're going to the when your brand goes wrong. As you can see, this guy's put himself into a box. He can't get out. Maybe it might feel that way if you had a slip up, something happened, and perhaps your reputation has been tarnished, accidentally, or perhaps even by just a way of being that you've had over the years that isn't serving you. But certainly, you can move on from that. And here are some ways to determine what your brand is now. Monitor yourself on, Google yourself or whatever other search engine you use. Sorry, I'm giving a free marketing to Google. Pay attention to privacy settings and think before you post. You want to be careful. I try to stay away from, especially now, negative postings of any kind. I think that, I like to keep it positive. I think that helps to bring, the level up, the conversation up amongst everyone. Every once in a while I'm very tempted to say something negative or strong, but I think the best way is to try to elevate the conversation, and that's never going to bite you in the rear in the future. Consider your actions and how they might, reflect on your brand aspirations. Conferences and different events can lead to us getting social and perhaps going out of bounds of what might be considered professional behavior. I think that can happen to any of us. I'm not talking about beating yourself up about it, but you can start by making a conscious decision not to do something, or to be a little bit more err on the professional side a little bit more. And then, ask for recommendations and endorsements. If there isn't much up there, maybe you look yourself up and there's nothing. You could begin to build and craft that from the ground up. And if there are individuals who count on you and whom you trust, I'm sure that they'd be open to, endorsing you or recommending you. So should you have gone awry in your brand, you realize, something came up that's not good, it doesn't look good, this could affect job opportunities, because, employers nowadays are often looking you up online. I don't like when employers delve into your personal social media, but it does happen. We have seen employers who actually require access to those things. And so there may be something out there that perhaps it doesn't represent the you want to be moving forward. So good ways of handling that is acknowledging it and recommitting to aligning your behavior to where you're heading. You know, just basically accept it, own up to your mistakes, make good on your commitments moving forward, and you know, reinvest in integrity. Make sure that you know you're doing what you say and saying what you're going to do, and you seize opportunities to make others feel good, because that is a great way, as Maya Angelou so eloquently put, to leave a lasting impression. Because if others feel good around you, that's what they're going to remember. So, you know, people love a comeback, and we've seen that a lot on in the media, with celebrities, etc. So, you know, don't consider yourself down and out forever. See it as an opportunity. Seize the moment, and make someone feel good, and recommit to yourself and your own integrity. Okay, great. Right. So now we're going to go on to Barbara with a few more tips.
Yeah, just a few more tips. So my first slide here is just some basic do's and don'ts. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I will say, out of all my do's and don'ts here, I think the most important thing is the first one: be responsive and fulfill your commitment. Nobody wants to work with people that they have to email 1,000 times to get a response, or that promise to do things that they don't do. So, you know, that I think is the absolute most important thing. When I think about when I have opportunities for people, and I'm going through sort of the list of people I might offer those opportunities to, the folks that aren't responsive or that in the past have failed to fulfill commitments, I don't offer those opportunities to them, because I know, you know, most of the time I really need someone who's going to come through for me, and I just don't have time to like email someone 10 times to get a response out of them. So be responsive and fulfill your commitments. And you can come back from this. You know, you can, if you haven't been responsive in the past, you can change your behavior and start being responsive in the future, and people will recognize that and change their minds about working with you. So this is absolutely something you can repair, but make sure that you are as responsive as you possibly can be, and that you fulfill your commitments. All right, so my next two slides I think are maybe a little bit more substantive, or at least a little bit more what I want to talk about here. And there are two sort of issues that I think people struggle with when they're trying to build a brand. The first one is, what if you're really not a SME? SME is a subject matter expert. And I don't really think it's necessary to be a subject matter expert to build your brand. In fact, I can think of people in this industry that I respect a lot and that I think have a great brand that aren't necessarily subject matter experts. There are lots of ways. Everyone brings something to the table. Whether you're a subject matter expert or not, you bring something to the table. So if you're not a subject matter expert, think about what it is that you do bring to the table and focus on that. There are other ways to contribute to the industry beyond just being a subject matter expert. One solution that I like to suggest is volunteering to perform some sort of administrative function for your local chapter of the NASCP or of any other professional association in this space. Running a chapter is rarely about subject matter expertise. It's about being able to find a caterer and find a location and make sure you print the name badges on time and lock down a speaker and make sure they submit their bio and the other things that you need from them before the presentation, before the meeting actually happens. Like, it's just a lot of administrative stuff, and it's hard to find people who want to do that stuff sometimes. So that is a great way that you can contribute. And leading a chapter is a great way to build your brand, particularly among your local network. Serving as panel moderators, like we talked about earlier, or facilitating group discussions. That's a way to sort of be a public speaker, but without necessarily having to have a lot of subject matter expertise. And then my last bullet point here is that networking is about listening as much as talking. So getting out, when you're at meetings and you're talking to people, you don't necessarily have to be a subject matter expert for people to like you and to want to know you and to remember you. People like to be asked questions. They like to talk about themselves. So make sure that, be interested in other people, and they will be interested in you, and they will remember you, and they will want to work with you. All right, and then my next slide here is the question that we got a little bit earlier. What if you just aren't a speaker? Like you just don't like public speaking? And so I have two solutions for you here. One is to potentially become a speaker. I hated public speaking. When I was in college, I had to take a class on public speaking. It was just a class. There were only 6 of us in the class. It was a class that not very many people ended up having to take. And so there were only 6 of us. I had to give a speech to the 5 other people in the class, 4 of those speeches, in fact, to 5 people. And every time I gave a speech, I was physically ill. I thought I was going to die. It was like one of the worst experiences of my life. And it wasn't that class changed my mind. After I finished that class, my thought was, I'm never going to speak publicly again. And it wasn't until I got out into the career world, and I was working as customer support for Share Data. Some of you will remember Share Data. And when you work in customer support, it's very reactive. People call into support after like something horrible has gone wrong, and you're trying to fix it for them. And after you do that for a while, you're like, I want to be proactive. I want to prevent people from doing things that are wrong. I want to attack problems from the other side. And so I decided I wanted to do training. And I really didn't think about the fact that training involved public speaking. It wasn't until I was actually in a room sitting there watching one of my colleagues present and knowing I was going to have to get up after her and present that I realized, oh my God, this involves public speaking. There's a whole bunch of people in this room, and they're all going to be listening to me, and I cannot even believe that I agreed to do this. What on earth was I thinking? But then I got up and did it, and I actually really enjoyed it. And then I started taking classes on how to be a better speaker, and I started rehearsing, and I got much more comfortable. And over the years I've gotten, the more I do it, the more comfortable I get. So becoming a speaker, speaking is a learned skill. Even if you are an introvert and you don't like public speaking, you can become a speaker if you really want to. I firmly believe that anyone can become a speaker if they want to. But maybe you don't want to. And that is totally okay. If it is not your bag, you just don't want to do it. I do not think that you have to be a speaker to build your brand. I do think there are other ways that you can do it. Networking is also a powerful way. It takes a little bit longer. You have to work a little bit hard at it. You're meeting people one at a time instead of a bunch of people in a room all at once. But going to events and meeting people and talking to them, you will eventually build your brand that way. I can think of lots of people that I see at my local chapter meetings that I have never seen speak, but I absolutely know who they are, and they are people that I respect, and I would go to if I had a question. I wouldn't ask them to speak. They're not interested in doing that, but I do think they have effectively built their brand. So just through networking, I think that you can do it. Also, just like for my non-subject matter expert, volunteering in an administrative capacity is another great way to show leadership in this space without having to be a subject matter expert and without having to speak publicly. Participating in online discussion forums or in discussion groups is another way to do that without having to be a public speaker. Or authoring content is yet another way. So I do think there are avenues for you if you're not interested in being a public speaker. Oops, I went too far. Oh, no, I didn't. Sorry. There we go. Sorry.
There we go. So if some of these things are sounding attractive to you, but you're wondering, either how do I fit this in with my other priorities, or how do I get budget from management to be able to afford doing some of these things, this side is addressing that. So if you are able to connect your brand building efforts with your company-wide goal-setting initiatives, this is a great way to show alignment to management and make a case for why whatever you want to pursue for your personal branding is actually going to be a benefit and a value to your organization. So paint the vision of where you're heading and how it will be a benefit to your employer. Perhaps, in going back to some of our previous slides, it's about education or networking opportunities or training or attending a conference. the clearer you can paint the vision of why this is important to you, where you're trying to take yourself and your brand, and how that ties back to the success of the organization, the easier it's going to be to get management to see why this would be a benefit, and of course, maybe even like a no-brainer for them to support you. And then tie tangible results to your continued development. Perhaps there's something that you want to be able to do for your organization once you get the investment in certain kinds of training or time to focus on a certain project. So then demonstrate that so that management can see, look, I did this, and look at the value that this created. And that can help to build the case so that you'll be able to get continued support from your management team. So now we're going to move on to some last words of wisdom and inspiration. I really appreciate all of you who stuck around to the very end here, and so let's get to it. Perhaps you're realizing that, you know what you've been doing for the past 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years isn't really where you want to be heading. You can stop and you can decide to reinvent yourself. Perhaps it's a matter of your career. Perhaps it's just a matter of how you interact with other people or your way of being. But if you become conscious of these things, you can make a decision to make a shift. And finding yourself essentially, as the quote says, is about creating yourself. Spend some time getting in touch with who you are at your core. Envision the you want to become in the future, and start taking steps towards that. And a lot of the branding tips and things we've discussed already can help you to rebrand yourself anew. And get inspired. This is a process that can be very exciting because it's all about you. It's about how you want to be perceived. It's about who you want to be. Don't be afraid to start. We all fail. As a matter of fact, if you're not failing a bunch of times, it means that you're probably not trying enough new things. So go out there and figure out that you might stumble, but it's how you handle those moments when you stumble that really means the most and says something about yourself and your character. So don't wait for the perfect time or the perfect plan or the perfect idea, because there is no such thing as perfection. So trust yourself. And that's something that, I've been working a lot on myself, is just to trust what I know and go for it. And heck, you're going to learn a lot through the process, even if you get a few bruises here and there. I think if people see that you're authentic and you really are looking to work on yourself, they're going to be supportive and get behind you. And take action and making personal growth your aim instead of competition, just to be a better you tomorrow than you are today, is a great way to feel really good about what you're doing and to wake up with purpose every day. And, going back to the beginning, this circles back to how we began the presentation about helping others, about being a support to others. The best way to succeed is to help others. And so focusing on the growth and well-being of those that you interact with is going to bring a lot of purpose, enjoyment to your life, and help to build those relationships. Making their goals your goals, as we talked about before, can align you and build trust with those that you work with and that you are involved with in our industry. Shifting the focus from your success to the success of those around you is a great way to ensure your success. So some things to think about. So in order to become an influencer, should that be something that you want to do? And I think we all are influencers. Sometimes we influence others for the worst, and sometimes if we're having a bad day and our energy is in that way, that could affect others in ways that we don't even realize. So if you want to be more conscious about the way you're influencing others, operate from a vision. Drive thought leadership and embody a growth mindset. Don't be afraid to share your vulnerability. I think Barb and I have both shared some of our vulnerability. I didn't mention it on this call, but during our run through, I was sharing that I get very nervous at the beginning of a presentation. So Barb and I have that in common. As far as I think sometimes you see someone speaking and you assume that they've never been nervous or it's just so easy for them, but we all have to step outside of our comfort zones often to be able to achieve great things or to be able to help others. So sharing your vulnerability lets everybody realize that we're all human, we're all in this together, and we're not so different. And invite others to step into their greatness. If you see others doing amazing things, acknowledge that and encourage it, because when you surround yourself with people who are all working on their own growth, amazing things happen. And one possibility to take that a step further is offering to become a mentor. If you see someone in your office or in the networking events who perhaps is newer in their career and could use some support as they're trying to figure out how to make their mark, it's a great opportunity for you to have purpose. And this is a really great tip for those of you who are farther along in your careers and perhaps feel like a growth mentality. Well, they don't want to grow, but there are other ways to grow besides just a better title and more money. I mean, you can also grow by mentoring others and developing your leadership and mentoring skills. And that allows you to make a difference, which can really make all of this worthwhile. So when it comes to advancing your career, I think all of these things can help you there. Aiming to be a better you each day is a great tip. And certainly if we all stumble and we're not always our best selves every day. But if you know you're on that path and you're willing to keep doing the work, no need to beat yourself up, as I often do, and perhaps you may experience that as well. Having authentic connections internally and externally is great for advancing your career, looking for opportunities to add value, and being open to wearing various hats and stepping outside the box. You never know where that can lead. And that's our final tip. Barb, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
No, I don't think so. I think you did a great job covering it in the little inspiration section.
Great. Sorry, I know we had to move through it quickly, but here we are at the very end. So it's been a pleasure speaking with you, Barb, and getting to share branding ideas with our listeners.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me to participate, and thanks everyone for sticking with us to the end of this presentation. I know we went over.
Yes, absolutely. And I know there was a question about the worksheet. That was given to Shauna a bit late, so I don't think that was in the initial email she sent out, but that will be in the materials follow-up, as well as it will be posted on our website once the presentation gets posted on our website. So if you need that right away, just feel free to email me. I'd be happy to share it with you.
Great, thank you,
And if you guys have questions after the fact, yeah. Thanks,
Great.
Shauna.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to thank Andrea and Barbara who joined us today, and thank all of you for attending today's educational webcast. Please do look for that email in the next few days with the link to the recording and to materials and to the supplemental materials that Andrea mentioned. Thanks again, and have a great day. Bye-bye.